Ah, Texas. The most American part of America that America's. I'm not much of a fan of Texas, but after my first visit, I can safely say that I'm still not a fan of Texas. But I am a fan of Six Flags Over Texas. Being the first in the chain, you gotta have a little bit of street cred, and well, this park does it with a little yeehaw included. So saddle up, you rootin' tootin' gunslingers, because this is gonna be a top 9 coasters at Six Flags Over Texas. Two things before we get into this video. You're probably wondering, but hey, Six Flags Over Texas has 13 coasters, so why is this a top 9? Well, because I only rode 9 coasters. Runaway Mountain was closed because of the Rona, and Runaway Mine Train was just plain closed. And since I'm not enough of a coaster whore to ride the kiddie rides, welcome to a top 9. The other thing, of course, is that this video is strictly my opinion on what I think are the best coasters at Over Texas, so if you have a problem with that, well, too bad. I'm going to make this real quick. We rode this POS once in the front row, one airtime moment, and the rest was just a rickety old coaster. Boring, shaky, slow, there's just not much else to talk about it. It's a one and done. Moving on. A bobsled coaster is probably one of the weirdest things I've ever experienced, but dang nabbit, it's still a lot of fun. Don't ask me why. It could be the out-of-control feeling, the lack of restraints, or the fact that it's a resolvement to one of my long-lost dreams to be a luge athlete. If that's what they're called. In the end, though, this coaster was a one-and-done for me. Maybe on a return trip to Texas I'll ride it again. Who knows? I would have to have a want to go back to Texas. The only reason why I even decided on it in the first place was that it was a cheap flight and I could actually get some real barbecue food. Thanks, Rudy's. You're the real MVP. This one may come as a surprise, but a coaster with one redeeming quality and a bunch of other not-so-redeeming qualities doesn't exactly make it a god-tier ride. Did this sucker twice in the back row, and while I absolutely adore double-looping Schwarzkopf, I equally disdain horribly profiled airtime moments. You start off the ride with a funky little drop into those two powerful loops one after the other, but then the coaster just turns into a repetitious pattern of being thrown violently to the left and right and slammed into your seat. Almost like getting a massage by someone who doesn't know the meaning of gentle and instead tenderizes your muscles into damn near oblivion. I mean, violent airtime is sometimes acceptable, just ask Skyrush, aka the ride that tries to take your legs, rip them off, and keep them as a trophy. But in this case, both my friend and I by the second ride realized that the airtime on Shockwave isn't exactly fun. But those loops alone, man. Wow. This is the part where the coaster community is gonna start to crucify me.
But you can't put pandemonium over Shockwave. That's blasphemy.
Yeah, well, I can, and I will, and I did. I'm sorry that my top coasters doesn't match yours, but if you have a problem with that, then you can rewind back to the part of the video where I said too bad. Spinning coasters can be the most dull ride experience, or under the right circumstances can be absolutely life-wrecking. While this Gersty boy isn't Spider at Lagoon, we still got a damn good ride on it. So much, we were on the brake run for about 2 minutes and were spinning still for 3/4 of that time. To me, if a spinning coaster really spins, then it deserves a medal because it's actually doing its job, since I have ridden some whack spinning coasters. And no, I am not talking about the scum of the earth SBF Visas. Piece of garbage. Ah yes, the 4D free spin. While some coaster cults worship these rides, but other people hate them with every fiber of their coaster count, I'm one of the few people that doesn't mind them, but doesn't love them either. I have one of these at my home park, so I wasn't really set on marathoning it because I already know what I'm getting myself into, but this one had a pretty darn good ride cycle. 3 flips is pretty good, and if I'm seeing stars, then you can bet your butt that it got me all messed up. I mean, it's good enough to be better than Shockwave at least. I don't know, that's about it. Moving on. Let me just say that of all the coaster models that exist, my guilty pleasure is easily the B&M inverts. If God in any way created joy on earth, then you better believe he put it in the form of one of these positive G machines. Now, I've ridden the one at Magic Mountain, the exact same model of this, and I have to say that one completely slapped booty. This one, on the other hand, though, doesn't even compare. Before I get any further in this, though, let me go ahead and explain one thing. You see, all coasters have a rattle to it, whether it be mild or not. It's just something you can't avoid. Very rarely will you come across a ride that is absolutely smooth. Majority of them, though, will just have a mild one, and it is no way a nuisance. On that note, though, Batman the Ride at Six Flags Over Texas has one of the worst rattles I've experienced on any ride. You see, front row was fine, but back row shook you up more than a frickin' shake weight. And yes, I know that is a terrible metaphor, and I'm using it for my pure disgust at the shakiness of this ride. So why is it fourth? Well, it's still being an invert. And that front row ride was so damn good. In the end, you can't really go wrong here, so I guess I'll get over it some way, somehow. Maybe I'll work out with the shake weight. I very much have looked forward to riding an old school premiere since I myself am an operator for the original Skyrocket 2, and let me say, this puppy lived up to the hype. Backwards launches are a blessing, and if you ever find yourself in the opportunity to ride one, then holy positive forces, Batman, get ready to go into some positive forces. That was terrible. I'm not really a fan of shuttle coasters, but when you take a backwards launch, a inverted top hat, and a 215-foot spike, who the hell could say no? I sure can't. Except just now. Moving on. Now before you all come at me with pitchforks and torches screaming to the gods Shoki and Grays about how I could have the remote audacity to put a Giovanola Hyper above other coasters at this park, let me first start by saying that Titan is actually an elite coaster, and let me secondly say, I don't care what you think. Titan is just Big Brother Goliath with an upward helix added onto it for good measure. And honestly, it surprises me that a ride that is shorter than its counterpart has more elements that can still slap harder. Back row is pretty fun, but front row on that floater hill gave me straight flojector, and no, I'm not making that up. It was absolutely insane. That moment combined with those positive G's and that twisty section make it an elite ride in my book. Sorry, Goliath. Big Brother Titan's gonna win this one for the best worst hyper. Back up, folks, an enthusiast with controversial opinions just stepped up to the plate to deliver some news that you thought you never heard but wish you didn't. But New Texas Giant is the most slept-on coaster in the history of sliced bread. Being the first RMC, you can only go up from there, and that's safe to say with things like Steel Vengeance, but we can surely all agree that Steve's dad is most likely Texas boy over here. And I love this ride, so much that it's actually my new overall favorite. Why is this ride so good, you ask? Because of Alan Motherflippin' Shoki. It's a genius. Let's explain. I hear a lot of people say that this ride is just hills and overbanks, and congratulations for pointing out a notion so plain as day it's more painful than looking at 14-year-old enthusiasts changing their number one to lightning rod because some YouTuber on the internet deemed it the word of law. I'm looking at you, Bibbles. On the surface, it may look like repetition, but with further analysis, you come to find out that not only is every overbank unique in its own way, but every airtime hill is different as well. Some are just a difference between floater and ejector, but other ones are off at an angle, off axis, whipped off an overbank, or there's even a fake airtime hill. Yes, there is a fake airtime hill, and it's still super fun. Add some tunnels to the mix and you got yourself one heck of a well-rounded ride, and that's exactly what I love in a coaster, is a ride that has everything. I rode this 9 times during my visit, and honestly, minus Titan, if I ever went back to Over Texas, I'd probably just ride this the entire day, because it is that good. But of course, that's just my opinion. I want you guys to leave down in the comments what you think are the top coasters at Over Texas, and leave some good reasoning, because I love a good debate. And as always, thank you guys for watching. See you in the next video. Peace.